Hey guys, welcome back. This is JK Ultra. This is my YouTube channel that I haven't posted on in like a month. At least not this type of video. I've been reposting my TikTok lives. And some really cool things have come up in those TikTok lives, which you can watch right here, right on this channel. And one of those things is about past life regression. I've talked about it before, and I did say that I was going to share my experiences with past life regression. So that coming up. But first, we're going to talk a lot of people have asked me this question is like, how do I go about finding out about my past lives? So, yes, you can find a person who does it. You can find someone who does. I suggest QHHT, which is the Dolores Cannon method. That's the method that I'm trained in. I prefer that method for past life regressions because not only do you do a past life, you then regress to your higher self, and then you're basically able to ask anything you want of your higher self. So I will give you some of the questions that you should ask. Or suggestions of questions to ask if you do a QHHT session. So, what is my purpose? What lessons am I meant to learn in this life? Why did I choose my life? Why did I choose to be me? Why did I choose my family? What lessons am I meant to learn from my family? What lessons am I meant to learn between this relationship? Why did I have this relationship? If you have any type of medical issue, why did this happen? What is the purpose of it? What am I meant to learn from it? Same thing with relationships or any type of experience that you've had. If you've, had an alien experience, if you've had a ghost experience, if you had some weird unexplainable thing that happened, what was the purpose of it? What am I meant to learn from it? So those are kind of like key elements of questions that you should be asking, or I suggest that you ask, and the way that I suggest that you word things around that. Also, you can ask big general questions about bigger topics too. That's why I really like the QHHT method. Another method is the LBL method that I like. I haven't done that. And we'll get to that in a minute. So if something like that is not in your budget to go and see a professional right now, that's totally fine. That doesn't mean that you don't get to explore it. And that's where I was at the first time that I started to explore this stuff. So I want to show you the recording that I used. So that's this right here. My God, I'm so sorry. I didn't wipe off my disgusting phone. So both of those videos are the same video, just from different people who have uploaded them. So it's Dr. Brian Weiss, past life regression session, no ads. Make sure you put no ads or click on the one that says no ads. Yeah, it looks like that. He's sitting on the couch and his book is next to him. So, yeah, put no ads because there's nothing more disturbing than when you're deep in meditation or hypnosis and a freaking ad just pops up. And if you're watching this, most likely those ads are going to be for Gaia or Mind Valley, both of which I love and suggest, both of which probably owe me a check for all the referrals that I have sent to them of my own choosing. From enjoying both of those platforms. I digress. So I did my first past life regression with that exact recording. So it is effective. If you have trouble meditating, I would practice meditating a little bit before doing that. Just so you know that you can get deep enough and really be prepared to do it and don't have any doubt surrounding it. Just know that whatever happens, whatever comes through, you don't need to question it. You don't need to doubt it. Just feel like, look, whatever happens, happens. And say if I see something or experience something, I don't need to accept it later, but I do need to allow it to come through and to receive it. So you have to know that I'm open and I'll think about it after if how I want to accept that information or not. So the reason that I did that recording was I originally, when I started to explore the past life thing, And I'll share. No, there's no pen. Okay, I won't take a note. I'll just try to remember it because it's not as important as all the rest of the stuff. So I'll get into it later. And if not, then oh well, it's not so crazy. Sorry, I was just judging myself for rambling for a second. Okay, I'm over it. So when I was first exploring this stuff, it was probably 2013, probably the beginning of 2013, was around the time that my spiritual awakening kind of began. I was always aware of, obviously, aliens and magic and stuff, because I had talked about that in previous videos. But as far as my own spiritual journey, that started in 2013. And kind of like I feel like one of the first moments of me becoming aware of it was definitely December 21st, 2012, which was supposed to allegedly be the last day of the world, the end of the Mayan calendar, all of that. So I do remember on that day looking at the calendar and not looking at the clock at 11 p.m. and being like, well, I hope it's not on the Hawaii time, because basically we missed it, because obviously here on the West Coast, we're one of the last time zones, one of the latest time zones. The sun sets here of the whole world. So if we made it to midnight in LA, then we only had Hawaii left. And I'm like, you think they did it on Hawaii time? I hope not. So didn't end up being the end of the world. And then in the months and years following that, especially in the months following that, I had my crazy spiritual awakening began. So around that time in 2013, I decided I wanted to see someone. I picked someone off of Google, not for any particular reason, not because of any suggestion or referral or anything. And that person had a questionnaire that you would print out and, fill in, because when you do the Dolores method, the QHHT, you basically, it's the first 2 hours of the session that you go over your life and the important people and the themes and the experiences you've had and the trauma you've had. This other regressionist, which I was not aware of Dolores Cannon at all at the time, or her method of hypnosis, or what she did at all. And I decided to just pick this person, and there was the questionnaire. You would fill out important people in your life, the names of important people, your relationships, trauma, same thing that I just mentioned, but they did it basically just on a form, and then they would have that form in the session. Sorry, you guys probably didn't hear that, but it's wild out there for some reason. Crazy noise outside, which is why I do this so late at night, because it's less likely to have the crazy city noise. It's 2:00 in the morning. When I do these, I do them very late. So, and I'm just getting started. So we're going to be up all night. Okay. Why am I so scattered? So I do the questionnaire, but then this session was $500, and I was feeling like in a scarcity mindset, in a lack mentality, just feeling like, and I mean, I really was making almost no money then. That was also, my rent was probably only $700 at the time. So, and that was in LA. So it was definitely not in my budget really to do it, but I wanted to, but then I talked myself out of it. I'm like, this is honestly too much money for me to spend. And this is going to be a lesson in lack mentality and scarcity mindset. And you're going to know what's right for you, whether it's right for you to spend money on a session. That's up to you. So basically, you're going to know what's right for your life. However, sometimes we do need to take that little leap and pay for certain things, because later on in life, you'll see how valuable it is. Sorry. I'm like, what's going on out there? It's 2:00 in the morning. So I end up not going to see this practitioner. I end up not booking the session. I just fill out the questionnaire, and then I never really do anything with it. And instead, I ended up doing the regression Brian Weiss recording. So that's your other option. You can do it on your own to start. And then after you do it on your own and you explore that, and if you want to even talk to your higher self the way in the QHHT, you can access the Akashic Records and do that yourself too. So for free on YouTube, you can do that. And then, you can access the Akashic Records for, free. But, I would suggest buying Linda Howe's book, How to Read the Akashic Records, to give you the rules of how to access them. Is it a helicopter? It's probably a helicopter. It's always a helicopter. Anyway, years later, and I will get into that regression, but years later, I have a box of kind of like mementos and stuff like that. And basically, I'm sorry. It's literally circling overhead. I'm going to continue, though. I'm going to continue because you don't know how many times I restarted this video. So we're not doing it again. That's it. I go into a box. I save a lot of like different things, writings and stuff like that. And I see the questionnaire for this past life regression session that I never ended up going to. The person who then I see the person who I was booking the session with, Dr. Michael Newton. I have 2 Dr. Michael Newton books here. I had not found out about Journey of Souls yet or Destiny of Souls. So the book that ended up changing my entire life, the book that I tell you is my number 1 suggestion of book that everyone should read in their whole life, that's the person I was booking the session with. And because of $500, missed that opportunity. And now looking back, I'm like, $500 to see one of the greatest of all time, the person who ended up changing my life 8 years later. I could have been one of the last sessions before he died. Yeah, that's really disheartening. But so regardless, Michael Newton still saved my whole mentality through his book, although I would have probably saved myself a lot of things that happened in my life after that point, because then I would have just known much younger. But everything happens for a reason and the right time and everything. But sometimes you got to take the leap of something, because looking back, I don't have many regrets, but I do kind of regret that. Anyway, let's talk about the first past life regression I had. So when I decided to not go to see Dr. Michael Newton and be one of his last clients before he passed away in 2014, sorry, I'm just looking at the levels here to see how much you're hearing the freaking helicopter that is circling over me. Okay. So this recording, Dr. Brian Weiss, I'm not going to freeze like a clone robot that's malfunctioning every time the helicopter flies over my apartment. I'm not going to freeze. But if they bust through the door, no one's ever going to see this video. Because, of course, they'd be here for me. Anyway, I'm literally all over the place. I don't know why. Why am I all over the place? Okay. I know I said I wasn't going to freeze every time that the helicopter flew over. Should I just stop this video? Oh, God. Anyway. So, Dr. Brian Weiss, I did the pre-recorded past life regression hypnosis. So, it wasn't in this apartment. It was in my old apartment. I lay down. I turn off all the lights. and I just had my computer, and I like turned the monitor, like the brightness on the monitor, all the way down to black. So the screen was black. And then I turned off all the lights, and then I just left one light on in my apartment, which was the light inside of my closet. So it's just the light inside of the closet, and I lay down, and he's guiding you through the process, and they take you, back. They take you to, you're in the womb. That was a little traumatic, just because there was so much chaos in my family's life while I was in the womb. We'll talk about that one day. And it will be related to some of this stuff. So maybe the next video. But all of that's very, deep and personal. And I'll share it. So I can't. I'm gonna fight it. I'm gonna fight the urge to be bothered by this helicopter. So I'm there laying down. And I mean, I was not a meditator really at that time. I was just exploring meditation. It was the beginning of it. And so I listened to this guided meditation. I have one light on in the closet. That's it. It's all dark. I literally go from the womb. And then as we start like kind of going back further from the womb, I literally felt like I was like levitating or something. I have never felt like that. Like I've had really good meditations, but that meditation was like literally like I felt like I was levitating, and it was like very pleasurable, like it was a really like good feeling. I was like, oh my God, like, like I felt like I was laying on my back, but I was like literally felt like I was lifting off of the couch. And I was like, oh, wow, yes. Like, keep going. And then I hear what sounds like an explosion. Okay? A freaking explosion. Like, so I'm like, jolt back into my body, and I mean, I think I gotta stop this. The freaking helicopter is freaking killing me right now. Okay, I'm gonna continue. So I feel like I'm levitating, and I hear a freaking explosion, like pop. And I jolt back into like I obviously was not levitating, but I kind of feel like I jolted back into my body, and I was like, oh God. And then I opened my eyes like so much, like I literally like grabbed myself, and I'm like, and all the lights are off. It's completely dark in the room. And I'm like scared as hell. I'm scared, because literally freaking, I don't know. I just heard something pop, and now I'm in the dark. And I was literally just in the womb. So I get up, and I'm like, oh God. And I knew I had the light on in the closet. So I'm kind of like inching towards the closet like a freaking horror movie. And I'm like, and I don't know, I just felt like someone was in there. Obviously, no one was in there. I only had one way in and out of the apartment. No one was in. No one came in. And no one was in there before. So it was smaller than my apartment now. And I'm like inching over, and I just felt like someone was in there. And I just felt like a presence, like a person. And so I like creep over, turn on lights and stuff. And then I'm like, see this on the floor. And I found the picture for you guys because I'm not going to just talk about it. We're going to look at it. Okay. So this, I actually have the date too. This was in June 28th of 2013. And I'm terrified. Turn on the lights. And the light bulb that was on in the closet had detached from the thing. So, oh, damn, I don't have the other picture. Oh, where's the other picture? You know what's interesting? This picture was taken at 11:11 p.m. Both of these pictures were taken at 11:11. I'm seeing the metadata now. There's a third picture that unfortunately I don't have. I just realized. So I do have it, but not any accessible place right now. So the light bulb had detached. So basically the part that is attached into the wall and the filament was still in there, but the entire light bulb was not. And it like broke off completely intact. So here's this. There's the helicopter. You see how it's totally like so it's totally intact, just detached, not broken. It was on the floor, fully intact. So obviously I pick it up, take a picture, and I'm like, who's here? Because I just felt the energy of someone being here. And I was like, Grandma? It's 222 right now. So I'm like, Grandma, is that you? So I'm crying, obviously, because I'm scared, which is funny because I don't really cry that much. But for some reason, the stories that I tell on YouTube are many of the stories that I cry. But it's so rare for me to cry. But it would seem like I cried a lot considering the type of stories that I tell you guys. So I'm crying, sitting on the bed, holding the light bulb like, oh God, what just happened? And then I get out my cry. I ask if it's my grandma. Didn't feel like a yes. Gonna be honest with you, it didn't feel like a yes answer. Felt like a big no. So get my cry out, let it all out, and then I'm like, well, I guess I better go finish the meditation then. I still want to know what my damn past lives are. So I get up, lay back down. I think I used a bathroom light instead this time. So I kind of did like the same type of vibe. No light bulbs exploded. No other light bulbs were harmed in the second hypnosis. So same thing. I go down and I actually went like really like deep. And I don't know if it was like because I had kind of like just got out like so much emotion and like, I don't know, like maybe because I like already had like, I don't know. I think it was like the emotional intensity before and maybe like that release of crying. So I went and laid down, did it again. Same thing. Went to the womb, went to the past life. And in this life, I was basically, I went back and like I said, I talked about this a little bit in my TikTok live. So if you already heard this part, sorry. I just wanted to all be in like all the information together. But there's a lot of other stuff that I didn't talk about in the live that is coming up. So you could skip ahead. So I saw myself as this woman, wearing these, it was like, I don't know, like Jesus time or like ancient time. I don't know. I didn't have any indicators to know really where I was or the year. So I don't really know the time frame, but like it looked like similar to what you would see in like the movie The Ten Commandments or something like that. And because that's apparently my go-to. And you know, the horrible sandals that are probably not really doing much at all, wearing like a smock, like a, freaking draped in like blanket type of clothes. And I was walking and there was these two men with me. They were walking like kind of ahead of me and they were like big burly guys. They were not nice at all. Just like bad vibes. They were just, I don't know. I didn't like them. They weren't like my husband or anything like that. They were like guys that, and I kind of like felt somehow like, I don't know, imprisoned or like a slave to them, or like they were transporting me or something. It was like not personal, but there was like a hierarchy and they were above me. And I was a woman, I was pregnant, and then I'm like gonna have the baby. So we go to like a barn, a stable, but it's like back in ancient times. So it's just like, not a house, but someone's property. And we ended up staying or stopping there. The people like let me have a baby there. So I have a baby in this like stable or whatever. And immediately after having the baby, they make me start walking again. And we just go back up onto the trip that we were, wherever we were going. It's hot. It's like deserty and just vast emptiness of, and I'm like, I didn't have any time to recover. I wasn't doing well to begin with. So we take the baby and start walking, and I'm just not okay. I'm like dying, legit. And I'm like walking, and I just like see a tree, and I just know like, that's it. I'm done. This is it. And like they're walking forward and I start walking off to the side, and then I just go and like sit under the tree, and then I kind of fall back, and then I'm just laying under this tree and I have the baby. And then the guy of the two guys that were walking with me, one of them just like takes the baby. And that's it. They just both keep walking. And I'm under the tree, and then I just kind of saw myself coming out of the body and then looking down and being like, okay, I'm leaving the body. All right, bye. And then that was that. And I'm like, oh, wow, interesting. So, but I was not very like super emotionally connected to it. We'll get into my other past lives, which I was very emotionally connected to. So my friend, a girl who I worked with, she got to see Brian Weiss in person and did a past life regression with him. What's crazy is her past life is almost the same exact story. We're like, what? She starts telling me the story, and I'm like, how is that possible? And I will tell you how that's possible. It's imprints. And we're going to get into imprints after this. Towards the end, we're going to get into the imprints of why some people have the same past life sometimes. Because not every past life that you remember is your past life that you lived. But that doesn't discredit the fact that you've remembered and experienced it, because we'll get into it. So she basically tells me the same story. not identical. She doesn't die under the tree at the end. She gives birth to the baby in like some type of stable and is like walking through the desert type of thing. And I'm sure, that probably happened a lot too. I mean, isn't that like also what happened to Jesus, right? So, that was my first time I did a past life regression. Well, first and second, I guess, right? Because the first time kind of like a light bulb broke. So later on, maybe a couple months later, probably a couple months later, I'm thinking about other things that were happening in my life at that time. I would say probably around September of 2013, I found another recording. I wanted to just try it again, and I found a different recording. It was kind of like, it wasn't like, Brian Weiss or these people who are kind of famous for this. It was a girl on YouTube, just a regular girl. And she had a guided meditation. So I decided, I'm like, I'm going to do this one during the day so that nothing creepy happens. So I get in bed and I do this past life regression and I'm listening to it, the audio, and it was so freaking intense. This past life, and this is another reason why I do like the QHHT method, is because in the induction process, when you're putting someone under in the Dolores method, it reinforces the idea that this is the most important life, the one that you're living right now. You right now are the most important one to you today. This is really just for like exploration. You're not going to absorb the emotions from this life. You're going to leave them with that life. Now, this other method that this girl did, which it was good, I'm not knocking on her thing because it was very effective, but there was no words in the induction process or like, the going under process that said like, don't take this with you home. Don't take these emotions back with you. And I think that's really important, which is why I do like the method that Dolores does. And I think also Dr. Michael Newton's method does something similar as well. And because it is important, because the thing is like when you do have a past life regression, a lot of times you really absorb because you feel the emotions. Like that's, I think, kind of the first time I did it, when I did that one with the Brian Weiss recording, I was not very emotional about the experience. It was kind of like, interesting. Wow. The second one that I did was like, I was feeling it. I was so emotionally connected to it. Oh my God. So I'll get into it. So same thing, induction process, going under. Now this one had a little bit, which I liked about it, which was cool, was it kind of told you to go to different points of the life. So it was like, go to an important part of this life. Go to an earlier time in this life. Go to this time of the life. And then it'd be like, okay, now go to the end of this life. So it kind of like moved you around a lot, so it was not just one moment. So it did kind of give me a little bit of like the full picture as to this life, which I really liked. So when I first started the life, when I first like was in it, and it was very like, this one was like a lot more vivid and specific than the one I had done before. I also had been practicing meditating throughout that time, so I was better at meditating as well. Also, I was having an intense spiritual awakening of so many different things, and some of the stuff that I had talked about already on this channel, like also some creepy stuff, and so I started the life. I was like, this woman, I'll put that out there now. Every past life that I have remembered, I've been a woman, which is interesting because when I was younger, I didn't think I was a woman. When I was younger, I was like, wait, what? How did I become the weaker sex? That's strange. I really just didn't expect that to happen. And it didn't really hit me until I was like 17 or 18, like, wow. So we're doing this, huh? Well, and I'm so glad to be a woman. And all of the stuff in this, all of the past lives, all of it, I think it's very crucial and important that I am a woman. And however, back to that life, I am in this, like, I'm looking out a window in the life. I'm looking out of a window, and it's like, I don't know, like not a window with glass. It's just like a hole, and like kind of like similar to a castle, but it's not. Like it's kind of like stones in the shape of like an arch. And then I was looking out that window, and I was like very fair, very, 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 very pale, and had like really long red hair. And very young. It's hard to say the age because I feel like at that time I wasn't super young for that era, but super young for this era. So I was probably maybe like max like 20 years old. But in that, it would be kind of like, would be equivalent to much older today. So max 20 years old. And then I kind of like look around the room, and this is my room. And it's like, I got the knowingness, because that's the thing that happens sometimes when you're under hypnosis, is like, there's a knowingness about things. You don't need to be told every detail, like by someone in the regression, because there's a certain knowingness that you kind of like look around and you're like, oh, this is my place. This is my stuff. Oh, I'm here for this reason. Kind of like in the previous one when I was like, oh, these guys are like maybe taking me somewhere and I don't know where, and they're above me, and I just need to follow their orders. So, you have those certain knowingness. And this room that I was in was my room. It was like a bedroom apartment thing, but I knew that I was not allowed to leave. And basically, I gathered that, because then I did see this, that it was a brothel, but not like anything voluntary. It was not, the glamorous brothel life that they talk about, in like French. And it felt like France. I don't know for sure. But I felt like it was France or something like that. Or just that region of the world. And there was a lot of things that I had a knowingness of. I knew that I was not allowed to leave. I knew that it was a brothel, because then in this regression, basically, people, men, disgusting men, would be sent to my room and basically, for them to have their way with me. And basically, it was just easier to like go along with it and make it easier for everyone, and so it was basically, like a sex slave. And so I'm in this room, I'm not even allowed to leave, and they just send people in there as they please. And then it says to go to an earlier time in this life, and then it just gets worse, like actually gets worse, because so it was like when I was in that room, it was sad, but also kind of like a little numb to the experience, because I was feeling the emotions of being that person, and I was kind of like numb to the experience, like the people coming into the room for me to, be intimate with. It was just kind of like a numb experience. And then they say to go to the earlier point of that life. And it looked like around like 7 years old. And when I went to that point of the life, I was in like an actual like castle, kingdom, whatever it was. And I was in like what appeared to be, and there's the knowingness, like I'm saying, is you kind of know who these people are and you know what the dynamic is and you kind of know because you're experiencing the person. And the person knows where they are. So you kind of get this like, oh, wow, I feel like it's this. This is like kind of like what my knowingness is telling me. And I was like 7 years old in this past life. And same thing, like smaller version of like what I just saw with like the red hair and like the very pale skin. And I was in like the king's bedroom in his bed, like getting, you know, I'm used to being on TikTok where you get like banned for every word that you say. But yeah, being assaulted sexually and horrible, vile, like so vile. Literally, I can't even give you guys the details. It was so disgusting and horrible, disgusting positions and everything. And it was just like, and I remember he was just like gross. He was so disgusting, this king. He was so fucking disgusting. And I hated him so much. And I just remember kind of like, it was happening, and I just remember kind of looking around the room at like stuff around the room, like kind of like disassociating. And obviously the room and the bed and everything was so grand, like so grand, excessive, and just so disgusting. And I mean, honestly, I was like, I literally start crying in real life as it's happening. I'm feeling all of these emotions of like how horrible this is. How could someone do this? And then also there was like this kind of like part of like not just the person, the kid who was experiencing this, but also like how could this happen at all? How could anyone do this anywhere, you know? And so I'm literally like starting to cry in meditation, in hypnosis. And so she says to like move to another point of the life again. And then I'm older again. You know, I don't know how old. Because exactly the age was so different then. Like, but my knowingness of it was like that basically I got too old for the king at some type of like, I don't know what year, but like something like around like, you know, becoming like puberty became too old so that basically I had this feeling that like I was basically living in the kingdom, not in any type of luxurious way, in like a enslaved way. And then around puberty, I was too old to live there anymore because the king didn't need anything from me then. I was then like useless to him. However, because, you know, this is how disgusting things are. Instead of, you know, it's not like they're just going to let you be free after that. So then he moved me to this other property, which was where the brothel was. And that basically the brothel was, for what I gathered or what I felt, was that I was on the property of the kingdom, but it wasn't living there anymore. It was like way farther down the property. So I was still like, there was obviously like a big enclosed property, and like looking out was very like beautiful, but I wasn't allowed to leave the room. And so when they say to like, after being a child and they say to move to another point, then I was like probably like a teenager. And I remember being in like the office of like this headmistress, like, you know, madam person. And She was so evil. Like, this woman was so vile too. There's like everyone, the people who came into the room were horrible. The king was the worst. The madam was terrible. It was just like a terrible life. It was horrible. So I get moved to that point, when she guides you to go to this other point of your life. And I forget what the cue was to go to, which point. Like, oh, go to, like, once was like, go to when you're younger. And then this, I don't know if it was saying like, go to another important day or something like that. And so I just remember sitting across from her at her, or I was seeing it in my head. I was sitting across from her in this office, and there was like a fireplace behind her desk, and she was just such a bitch. And kind of like telling me, and I don't remember the words, obviously, but she was kind of like telling me, like, not to act up. Like, you're not going to, like, win. And, you're only going to this is only going to be worse if you, keep acting up and, act like a lady and this. And you're going to, and she was basically just kind of, like, threatening me to comply with everything and whatever. And I doubt I did anything that bad, because it had been since childhood that I was in that whole system of what they were doing. And so then there's another point of the life when now I'm back in the room, and I was in that room for years, did not leave that room. Like, if I did, it was literally to go to, like, the madam's office. Like, I literally did not leave the freaking room. And all these different people would come in. And so now also the guys that were coming there, it wasn't just like regular off the street people. It was like anyone who was like working with the king or for the king or passing through or other things that were in the area. So it would be like people that were all working, or like if, someone else was in town, it would be like, that was kind of like an amenity for the king, kind of like, oh yeah, we've got a spa here, we've got a brothel there, just go on in, get one of the girls, like, enjoy yourself. And that was like the vibe. Like, it wasn't like, I don't even think it was like a paid brothel. Like, I think it was just like for whoever the king wanted to impress. And so one day, this is where it gets a little good, I remember waiting. So I don't remember the first day that I met this person, but I remember this feeling that, like, every time someone would come into the room, it's not like they would fucking knock. Why would they knock? They're literally going to rape you. Like, so I just remember every time I heard the door open, I would look, and I was always hoping like it was this person. And I just remember when I moved to this like important day, I looked and was like, oh my God, he's here. He's back. Thank God he's back. And this like warrior guy, this like knight or whatever, I don't know. And I could very vividly see what this person looks like. This like nice, handsome knight, like, comes in the door, like, and when I saw him come through, I was like, oh my God, like, thank God. Like, I've been waiting for you to come back. And same thing, the knowingness. So when he walked through, I was like, oh, thank God. Like, and I feel like he would come by like once a year or whatever. There was like something that he would be, I don't know. He worked obviously for the king, and he was like a knight or warrior or whatever he was. I don't know. But along those lines. And when he came back, I was like, oh my God, you're here. Thank you. Like, and so he comes. He was like the only person that I ever was happy to see, and that I would just wait for him to come back. And every time the door opened, I was always hoping it was him. And it was not him 99.999% of the time. And I remember thinking, like, he doesn't even know how much I love him. You know, like, he doesn't even know. And then we're laying in the bed together, and he's like, basically tells me, like, I'm going to get you out of here. Like, I have a plan. I've been thinking about it since the last time I saw you. I'm going to get you out of this place, and we're never coming back. Either of us, we're never coming back here. I have it all planned out. And so then the next part of this memory, regression, visualization, I'm like in the back of like some type of carriage type of thing. And I'm like, I don't know, like hiding under something. Like there's stuff on top of me, and I'm in this carriage, and we're leaving. And, this is still all on the property of the kingdom. So, we just have to get on the other side of it, and then we're good. But of course, I probably wouldn't be remembering this traumatic past life if everything would have went as planned. So they pull me, someone, same thing. The knowingness was that like someone heard the plan, because obviously it wasn't like I was the only person there. There was many people that were in this brothel. There was many other women, and there was many other rooms, and there was a lot of people who worked there and stuff. So apparently someone had overheard the plan, or had seen us, or someone found out, someone told on us, and I get pulled out of, what I'm hiding under, and then they literally just murder him right in front of me, and like very vividly see him like hit the ground, and there's like all blood and everything. And I literally, like, I'm crying throughout most of this, because first I'm crying because of the trauma and how horrible it was. And I mean, I'm talking about it now because we'll get into that next. I used to not even be able to talk about it because the emotions from it were so intense. I literally would start crying. Like I would, even if I would like think about this like person, this warrior guy, literally start crying. Like, think it was so intensely, like so emotional. And for years, that was in 2013 that I did that. Up until 2020, I literally would get choked up just even like being like, oh yeah, I did a past life regression before. Like literally. And because, I only tell you guys the stories that I cry about, because if I haven't cried, then is it even worthy of a discussion? So I get brought back to the thing, and basically I end up dying in the brothel of some type of like, STD type of thing, which was like very ongoing. It wasn't like I got it and died. It was like I suffered with it for a long time. And it just basically ended up spreading somehow throughout my body. I don't know what it was, but then basically it was something along those lines. And yeah, I died not that long after. I didn't live to an old age in that past life. And I was really hysterical during that. Then I opened my eyes and I'm like, great. I just absorbed all of these like emotions and trauma and feelings and everything from this thing, from this past life. And for years, I was very impacted by this experience. And so immediately when I got up, I was dating a guy at the time who, I'm not going to get into the whole story. I am I did write a book, which I will be publishing. A book, not that I just wrote recently. It's a book that I've been writing for 10 years. That story, not the past life story, the relationship story, and there's a lot of stuff in there about that experience. But basically, this person was a liar and, a bunch of other stuff. And I opened my eyes after crying and having this whole life, like literally experiencing a whole life of torment and torture. And the only person who was ever nice to me got murdered trying to help me. Then I lost my train of thought. So I woke up from that regression, and first thing I remember is like opening my eyes and being like shocked that it was daytime. Just because I was like so deep into it that when I opened my eyes, I was like, oh my God, it's bright in here. Like, it was crazy. And then, and I had been crying so much. And then I broke up with that guy a couple days later. And I was actually working with him. So he fired me for dumping him. And it was worth it. It was worth it because you know what? I woke up from that and was like, you know what? I'm free in this life. I don't need to deal with any of this. I don't need to deal with anyone. And so I dumped him and got fired. Then, before I go into my next experience with a past life, I'm going to fast forward to the year 2020. So, in the year 2020, around the same time of my video where I talked about the astral projection, when I did that astral projection to go to the Akashic records, it was all within that time frame, which was all very close to the Grand Conjunction, the December 21st, 2020. So that date I had been preparing for, and I don't know if I made that clear in my last video, that I had like gone on like a full detox of like only eating mostly just green vegetables, mostly just raw. I'm a person who smoked weed for 21 years, more than that, but 21 years every day. And then, so I stopped smoking. I mean, drinking isn't that much of an issue for me, but I didn't drink. Was like literally like going 99.9% clean and was meditating and doing all this stuff to prepare, which is, I think, why the reason I had such a successful astral projection, because I haven't really attempted it since then, because I do like to prepare in those ways my body to do any of those things. So I was in like a really clean place when in 2020, I kind of got like this mental note. I actually watched an Elizabeth April video, her reptilian video, and it's about like trafficking and basically how, a lot of people who are very concerned about trafficking issues, especially of children, but of all ages, have been victims of that in their past life. And it like literally like slapped me in the face. And I was like, oh my God, I need to heal that past life. I need to forgive that king, and I need to forgive the madam. And, I've talked about this before. I really do believe that in order to learn, we do have to forgive. I don't want to be karmically connected to it. If I had that experience of a past life, then there's probably a reason for that. And I'm probably still not healed from that experience, and especially how much I was crying from it and how much it hurt me. And then for years after that was kind of still hurt by it after having this regression and remembering it. So I was like, damn, I really do need to heal, not just from this life, because I've done the work to forgive the people who've hurt me in this life. But I'm like, wow, I'm probably still holding on to that too, which is also played out in my life in a lot of different ways. And so I go into deep meditation to do a cord cutting, forgiveness, contract ending, visualization, like I've talked about before. I believe so. I believe I've talked about it before. So I'm like, I'm going to do this for that past life, and I'm going to forgive this king. I'm going to forgive the madam, and I'm going to move on. So, like I said, it was a very intense time. There was all of these alignments. It was 2020. Everything had been locked down for a while. Everything was very heightened. Plus, I had been doing a lot of stuff with my body being detoxed and cleansed to heighten my spiritual process and journey. And so I get into this really deep meditation and go to the place that I go to. Which is, the meditation that have on this page to cut cords and contracts. And that's basically the thing that I do. And that's what I was doing. And so I get the message, like very clear, that yes, I do need to forgive the king and the madam, but the real problem here is I need to forgive myself for the guilt that I felt for feeling responsible for my lover's death. Which I had never really thought about, because, a lot of times we think about, the trauma that's been done to us as being the real trauma. But the message that I got in the meditation was, yeah, you do need to heal that, but that's not what you're holding on to. You're not holding on to that part of the trauma. You're holding on to the part that you feel responsible for someone's death. And it was the only person who ever truly cared. So I do which is in the meditation that I have on my page. I do that meditation not the recording of it. I recorded it based on these experiences that I've had. So when I made that meditation, it's based on this experience that I'm telling you now. And so I basically get the message that, like, I need to bring in the warrior lover guy. And so I do this meditation, and same thing, like, the way I visualize it is on a cloud. He comes in on a cloud. He comes to my little, like, astral island. And he steps off, and, he still looks good all these lifetimes later. And so basically, I have the most freaking intense conversation with him that I, like, don't even know if I could have imagined this conversation. And so basically, I tell him, like, or maybe he just starts telling me. I don't know. I tell him. Like, I'm so sorry that it was my fault that you died. And he tells me, like, it was the only noble thing I ever did in my whole life. He was like, I thought that I was noble serving the king and doing that work and protecting the king, protecting the country. And he's like, I thought that I was doing something noble, but I never did in my life. The only time I ever did something noble was trying to help you, and it was worth it. And he's like, I was fighting and protecting a king that was a monster, and everything that I was fighting for and protecting was treacherous. And helping you was the only good thing I ever did in my whole entire life. And you have to forgive yourself, meaning me. You have to forgive yourself because I truly never did anything good for anyone else in my life. And I'm glad that that's the way I went out. And I didn't go out defending a disgusting monster of a king. And, I'm starting to cry, obviously. And it was just so intense. And like, I felt like he was inside my apartment. Even though my eyes were closed and I was in meditation, I felt like he was standing next to me. And it was just so intense. And I'm like, had a conversation about it. That was the abridged version. And we have a conversation that was so like, I wouldn't have thought of that. And the message that I got from my higher self is like, yeah, you do still need to do the other part towards the king and towards the madam. But this is the part that's been affecting you and holding you back. This is the part that's the real trauma, is you seeing that and never forgiving yourself for it. And so, I accepted, like, okay, I forgive myself for this. And then this part's a little weird. So after that, whatever, we hug, and then he gets back on the cloud. The cloud is leaving. And as the cloud is leaving, and it is just like right about to be like, it's like right almost out of my vision, he like flickers, and he was one of my ex-boyfriends. Like, he flickered for a second, and an ex-boyfriend who, at the time, I was just like, that was really weird. And then I felt like I woke up and was like, I felt like I could barely breathe. I felt very overwhelmed, and I was like, I need to go somewhere. So I just got in my car and I drove up to the top of like Mulholland Drive, and I just looked out over the city, and was just like breathing. And I texted my friend what had happened, and I told her, I was like, it was really weird though. My ex was like, it flickered to him at the end, which was just strange. And then I started to realize, which with her guidance, she was like, wow, because, there was kind of a similar situation in your life where he helped you out of, a situation. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, was it the same soul? Was this us finishing the thing he actually did? And obviously it wasn't the same type of situation, and it wasn't a life or death situation. But it was like, wow, did we kind of complete it? Did he really get to help me out of, a situation, and help me kind of start a different life for myself? And I was like, wow, was that the same soul reincarnated in this life? And was this us completing the end of our karmic contract with each other? Was it the same soul, or is it a representation of the same scenario? I don't know. I can't be sure, because sometimes I feel like that's also what happens with past lives, is that sometimes we might feel like we've had a parallel past life with someone, but it's like, is that exact soul, or is it a representation of that trauma now playing out in a different way and completing that cycle, but maybe not only with that soul? I don't know if it was him. It could be. But that was kind of like, wait, whoa, that was weird. I do kind of feel like it was him. He's not really a believer of any of this stuff, though, so I won't be like, yeah, well, we did it good this time. And, we've both moved on and everything is good there. But, yeah, so the next day, because obviously I was kind of too overwhelmed by the whole situation and just it was a lot to process. The next day, I did it again. This cord cutting meditation, a little on my my astral island, where then someone comes in on a cloud. So the second day that I did it, because I knew I had unfinished business to do, so I told my guides everything. I was kind of like, okay, guys, I need the rest of this day for myself, but I'll be back tomorrow to finish. So I did the same thing, the same exercise, the same meditation, and this time on the island, because every time I do this, I'm always with an angel, and then it's me. Then it's also the red-haired woman that I was, the one that was around late teens to 20 years old. She was there, and the child version was there. All three versions of myself were all there on this thing, and then on the cloud came the king. Sorry. I can't tell if I'm yawning or burping or thirsty. I don't know. So, in on the cloud comes the madam and the king. And we just basically did a similar type of thing, but it was obviously not as emotional because there wasn't really much to say between us. So basically, I didn't even say it. It was the younger version and the red-haired adult that were both just kind of saying I didn't deserve what you did to me, but I do forgive you because we're moving on. We're ascending, baby. We're moving on. So it was it was not as emotional type of thing. And then that's it. Then they left on the cloud. And literally since then, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. After that, I've had a very different feeling about that past life. I was able to talk about it and not be emotional or feel all of these emotions around it. So I still feel connected to it, but I feel a little bit of oh, okay, it's healed. It's okay now. Everyone's okay. Everyone's safe. I don't need to worry about it. Everyone's good. So then we'll go to one of my other past life regressions, which was the one that I did professionally. So those two that I just discussed with you were both very freaking intense for me to have done them by myself with just a recording. The Brian Weiss one is not as intense as the second one. Me yawning right now is literally like the freaking helicopter. Stop. So then in the beginning of 2021, I did a QHHT session, the Dolores Cannon method of hypnosis. And I had all my questions, but I experienced a past life. What is wrong with me? And don't say it's because it's 3:00 in the morning, because I fell asleep for 3 hours before. So there's no excuse. I fell asleep against my own will. I didn't want to. So I do this QHHT session and experience a past life in that session. So in that life, it started, I was in a park and it was modern. Modern being I don't know, early 19th, 19 hundreds, or maybe a little bit right before maybe late 1800s, or maybe like even up to like 1920s or something like that. I mean, I don't know if there was like any cars or anything like that. I didn't see anything like that, so I don't know. But I was in a park, which in a place which looked like San Francisco. Um, it kind of looked similar to the Full House type of houses. Not exactly, but that type of like, it looked like those style of houses, which is the reason why I say that it looks kind of like San Francisco. And I was sitting in a park, and I had a like picnic basket, like, one of those ones that like opens up on each side. And oh my God, this is really annoying. So, uh, so I'm like sitting there with this like picnic basket for a picnic, and then I'm there alone. And then, this is a little different because now I have a person asking questions during. So it's not kind of just like free form or anything. It's like now I have a person like, okay, and who are you with? Who are you waiting for? So I felt that I was waiting for someone, and that person never came. And I was upset that the person never came, but also there was like this knowingness of like a numbness too, like kind of like very like emotionally numb, which is interesting because that's been kind of very consistent in all of these past lives. Is it's like there's always like this like situation, and it's like there's pain around it, but then it's also extremely like numbed too, like kind of like, well, this is what it is. What do you expect? It is what it is. And so after this like picnic thing, he like guides me. He's like, well, where do you live? What is the house like? Oh my God. This is fucking annoying. This yawning. So I feel like I'm all over the place. So we go to the house. He guides me to go to my house. And it was kind of, it looked like an old style, like San Francisco house. And it was like the stove. It wasn't like a real stove. It was like, very old. Like everything was very, very old. Like it was cooked over like a fire type of thing. Like, there was no like modern appliances or anything. Everything was pretty like dark and dingy. It was not, obviously there wasn't much lighting. I don't even know if there was any like regular lights, or if it was like gas lighting. I don't know. But basically the house was just very old school. And he was asking me, he's like, well, do you have like, is there anyone that lives there with you? And I felt no connection to the people who lived with me. And I knew that I had a husband, and I hated him. Like, I hated him. And then he was asking if I have a son, or he asked if I have like any children. And I was like, I think I have a son. And he's like, oh, okay, like you have a son. And I'm like, but I don't know. I feel like I know he's my son, but I feel nothing towards him. And I was feeling guilty in that. Like, I was feeling guilty, but also like feeling guilty from the person that I was in that past life. And, I was like, I think he's my son. He lives here, but I don't feel anything toward him. And I remember the hypnotist was like, well, that's okay. Don't worry. You don't have to. I was like, oh, okay. Which is the part that's good about doing it with a professional, but you want to do it with someone good. So, don't just hop out there and do it with anyone. Oh, Nintendo's having a bad dream. Honey, Nintendo. Nintendo. Okay, I think he's good. Yes, Nintendo is a dog. Nintendog. Uh, Someone said that in my TikTok live. That wasn't my joke. So basically, he kind of guides me through this life. He's like, well, is there anyone that you like in this life or anything? And I was like, oh, I have a friend. And I've had like one friend, but I didn't get to see her that much. I don't know if she was like a neighbor or something. And that was it, you know. I didn't really have like anyone in my life except for like my husband and son, who I felt like nothing towards. I mean, I hated the husband and I felt nothing really towards the kid. And then I had a friend, which was the only person who I had. And I just like the whole entire life just felt like bland and joyless, but not like anything overtly bad like all the other ones. You know, the other lives were terrible, you know, but it still was a very similar type of thing where I kind of felt like I didn't really want to be there, but I didn't really have a choice. And so then he asks, like, he moves me through time because not much happened in that life. And then he moves me through time and moves me. He's like, okay, well, let's go, you know, to an important day. And this important day was, I got the news that my husband had been killed because of a bar fight. And I was like, yeah. Oh, he's dead. Oh, okay. And the hypnotist was like, well, how do you feel about that? And I was like, relieved. I'm happy about it. Guys, I don't know if you hear that. Well, my speaker went on and played some type of like meditation sounding music. I don't have the remote near me, so I hope it doesn't do it again. That was really scary. Grandma, is that you? Okay. We're all here. Everybody's here, guys. Hi, Nintendo. You're awake. That was scary. Come here, baby. Come here, baby. We're scared. Okay. He's not coming here. Okay, yeah, so my husband died in this past life. Why did that speaker, I can't even think what freaking time frame I'm in. My Bluetooth speaker just turn on and play that. I don't know if you guys heard the very soft music that was playing out of it. Slightly disturbed, but I will continue. Okay. I don't know what that meant. Okay. So I got the news that he had died, and then I was relieved by the information. And because I hated him. I literally hated him. And then he was like, well, what about your son? This and that. And then I'm like, oh. And then I realized what happened with the son. And the reason why I didn't have any emotion towards him. So, because then the son gets older. And as the son gets older, he gets married. And he's not that much older. He's literally like 18 or 17 years old or something, like older, was very young. And he gets married, and his wife was very nice, very good, nice girl. And I start to like lose my mind. I start to kind of like, I don't know if I was really having psychosis or if maybe I was just kind of having like a menopause or a menopause. Yeah, what am I saying? If I was going through menopause or something like that. Like, I don't think I was like, I don't know if something was actually wrong with me or if it was just kind of like, you know, I don't know. But then they ended up taking care of me. My son and his wife ended up taking care of me. And so I start crying, because I won't share it here unless I cried. And crying in real life, like as I'm under hypnosis, my eyes are crying. And because I felt so guilty, I felt like, wow, this poor kid, I never showed him the love that he deserved, and he still took care of me. He still like had a big heart and took care of his mom, and his wife took care of me. And then I went somewhere to like, I don't know, a facility, like I feel like it was an insane asylum or something. And then I died there. But the thing that when my son was taking care of me, the thing that I started to cry about was because I kind of like figured out what happened. I remembered what happened. So the reason that I didn't have any feelings towards the son was because the father, my husband in that life, was a rapist. And, that was how I got pregnant in that life. And then I was forced to marry him because I was pregnant. So I never wanted him to begin with. He, overpowered and took advantage of me. And then I got pregnant from that and had to marry him. And then, because what was I going to do? So I had to marry the rapist. That's why I hated him so much. And then I never really warmed up towards the baby because that was the product of it. And I just never really gave the child any love. And I felt really guilty about that. So then the other good thing about doing it with a practitioner is that basically they can ask certain questions that you're not able to ask when you do it on your own. But that doesn't mean don't explore it on your own. But it's nice to have those questions. And he asked, why did you choose to show her this life today? Because there's so many past lives that we've had or so many different things that we could have seen. Why was it important to see this life today? And the answer that I got was, which I verbalized because you're under hypnosis, is that my higher self wanted me. So now, see, this was the same hypnosis session that I talked about in the first video about finding my purpose and all of that. This was the same hypnosis session, but the beginning of it started like this. Then after the death, I went into that other stuff. So this was before. And basically the reason that my subconscious mind had showed me that specific past life was because they wanted me to see that, one, the life that I have now, I have so much freedom and so much choice. And all of these other lives, I never really had choices. I never really had the opportunity to make choices for myself. It was always like this overpowering, overbearing male dominance. And they wanted to show me that. But the reason they show me that life was because they said they didn't want to show me anything too bad. They said that basically that life wasn't too bad. And they didn't want to show anything worse because they don't think that any of the more toxic lives would have been beneficial. So they decided to choose one that was pretty like mild, you know? Which I mean, you know, not that that's nothing, but apparently in comparison to the others, it was like, yeah, there you go. It's a little, you see how much choice you have, you see, and it was kind of just really to like show that like all of these other lives, I've never had the choices, and probably none of us have, because the world is so different today. So it's like, we all have more choice now, more power now than we ever have had in our past lives. So like now is the time. Now is the time to step into who you're supposed to be, to do the things that you want to do. I can guarantee you, you didn't get to do what you wanted to do in all your past lives because the world was just not set up that way. So now we have like this amazing opportunity. And, you know, seeing that in a past life, you see the opportunities that we have now, you know. We have more to be upset about now because things aren't as bad, you know? Like, some people say, like, oh, things are worse than they've ever been. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. Things might still suck, but that's what you make of it. That's up to you because they don't need to. And yeah, like, this was one of the things too that led to me eventually quitting my job, just because I was like, you know, like, I have the choice to like live my life the way that I want to live. And this might be the first time that I've ever had that choice. And if I do it right, it might be my last. So I'm going to live it. Yeah, so those were the past lives that I did under regression. I'm going to give you 2 other quicker instances of experiences like that. So I had a dream probably last year in 2021. You know, sometimes you have a dream that doesn't seem like a dream. Like it seemed a little too weirdly realistic. And this was like not even like a dream. It was like so simple. It was like I was at a table and I was kind of like organizing something on the table. Like it looked like maybe like I was going to give out samples for something, or like, I don't know, handing out something on a table. And I was organizing it, and this guy comes to the table, and this guy looked like he wasn't from this century. Like he looked like not all the genes have evolved yet. Like barbaric. He looked like a freaking, I don't know, not a Neanderthal, but not quite full Homo sapien either. So I'm like organizing something on the table, and then he just like bangs this thing on the table and just stares at me in the eyes. And when he did that and I looked in his eyes, I was like, and literally like woke up like, and I don't know why I was like, it like jolted me to full awake. And I barely have nightmares. And that wasn't even like a nightmare. He just like banged on the table and looked at me in the eyes. But when I saw his eyes, I literally was like, what the fuck? So that was something that I asked the Akashic Records about, because I had a horrible feeling. Like I just was like terror from looking into that guy's eyes. And then I was like, what was that? Why was I so afraid? And throughout the day, I was like anxious. My heart was racing all day long. And I was like, why the hell? First of all, I don't remember a lot of my dreams. Second of all, I don't have bad dreams that often. And that wasn't really like that serious. So why? I do want to say the bad guy in my dreams looks like those guys a lot. Looks like a freaking barbarian from like, I don't know, over 1,000 years ago. Like, not all the genes have, you know, not all the natural selection has happened yet. And just, I don't know, just barbaric looking and kind of like, I don't know, a little bit like kind of like the people they casted in Braveheart. That's mean, but like, no, kind of like that type of look though, like a very like the type of people that they casted in Braveheart because that's how people looked there then. And so it kind of looked like someone like an extra in Braveheart. And I asked the Akashic Records after like a day, I was kind of like, why am I like kind of rattled by that? That was weird. So I'm like, what was that? Was that a psychic attack or something? And I also really haven't had that much experience with psychic attacks because I only deal with my higher self. I don't allow like different energies or anything in. So the answer that I got, I wish I would have known I was going to bring this up because then I would have actually read it to you, but I don't think I can find it right now. But the answer that I got was that he was someone who killed me in a past life, and that something like some type of, I guess, kind of similar to a psychic attack, projected an image of a person who murdered me in a past life in that dream to scare me. Yeah. And just weird, right? And then I got in a real deep meditation, like a couple days later. I think I did mushrooms actually, and I did mushrooms by myself. Very little amount. I don't do them. I do so little, but I have very intense effects from them. So I was meditating with headphones and stuff on mushrooms, and I kind of like saw this whole thing. It was like I heard like kind of like something like connected to like a carriage or something, like, you know, like the whole Just Married thing where they put the cans on the back of the car. It was like that sound of like the cans on the back of the car and like hitting the ground. And and it was like I was hearing that sound, and that sound like took me into this like bizarre marketplace, like city center, swap meet, like, you know, this whole like, but hundreds of years ago. And same type of thing. It was me in the back of a carriage, hiding in the back of a carriage. Not really hiding. I was once again like a prisoner possession of someone. And this person we were going through this like city center to get something. I was in the back of the carriage. And that guy from the dream took me. Like, I don't know, I was somehow attached to the thing. He basically, and now this was interesting because, you know, this was different than a regular regression. So this was just something that kind of like, after I had that dream, within the next couple days, had this whole entire scene play out in my head. So it was different than a hypnotic regression, like the other three of them were. So this one exactly, I don't know if this was kind of just like some type of representation of something. And he basically like steals me from the back of this thing and then takes me to this gross little space that he lives in, like a crazy little cob home, you know, like a home made of cob or something. And yeah, obviously, did all the same stuff that happened apparently in every past life that I've had, which is like, rape and all that. And then he like just, I don't know, he was crazy though. Like he obviously was crazy because, he was stealing me and keeping me hostage. Except not even hostage, just prisoner. Um, and then, yeah, he like stabbed me in I was laying on the ground and he stabbed me, and I was seeing his eyes the way that I saw them in that dream. And so it was very interesting. So that I don't really know. And then I guess I'll just give you one quick little fun one, which this one is probably not true. This one is probably a psychic scam, because clearly there's a theme here. Maybe that's what I should talk about instead. The theme. So the theme is, clearly there's always this thing about like womanhood, about being a possession, being overpowered by men, male dominance, rape. Yeah, like it's this same theme. Okay, yeah, so that's what I'll do. So when I did the hypnosis, the QHHT, one of the things that I saw very briefly during that in my head, I saw a flash of like the Dewey Decimal System, which I don't know, some of you might be a little young for that. But, in the library, there's those little tiny drawers, and like you pull out the drawer and then it has all of the books by that author, and, where it is or whatever. So it was like that. And it was kind of like in the Akashic Records, though. It was like a Dewey Decimal System in the Akashic Records. And of course, that's a symbolic way of perceiving it. We'll get showed things through symbolism. So I kind of like saw myself like opening one of the drawers and then kind of like pulling out this thing. And I felt like as I saw that in my head, the information that I got, which I wasn't able to like verbalize to the hypnotist, was I was like, it almost felt like I was like opened the little drawer for the Dewey Decimal System, like looked through and was like, oh, women problems, rape, and just like took all of those like lifetimes out. And that kind of goes back to the beginning where I met this girl at work who literally did a session with Brian Weiss and had a very similar, almost identical past life to the one that I experienced when I did his regression. And it made me think, like, I had already known about imprints at that time. So when she told me that story, I was like, wow, I wonder if that was not a past life, but that was an imprint. And then the same thing too. Then afterwards, I felt like when I saw the Dewey Decimal System thing, I thought like, wow, like, what if I just downloaded those past lives? Because this is part of what I'm meant to heal karmically for myself and for others. Because the karma that we're healing right now is, helping other people who've experienced it. It's healing our ancestors. It's healing generational stuff. It's healing collective stuff. It's healing in the galaxy because it's all rippling out. So this whole thing about like me now being able to make these choices in this life and not being able to make them in other lives. And like I said earlier, the book that I've been writing for 10 years, that's a book. It's a comedic self-help book for young women. Well, all ages of women. And it's about like basically how women right now, we have the opportunity, and it's funny and cheeky and has a lot of like funny stories and funny pop culture stuff. It's very like the tone is very cheeky, but the content that's underlying is very deep because it's about, you know, as women, this is our time to finally redefine everything about being a woman. And we don't need to run from being women and change our pronouns. I mean, that's not what the book's about. That was just something I added right now. No, but we don't need to run away from being a she, her. There's nothing wrong with it. We actually need to redefine it in a way that is just like more than it was, because, and this is what the book is about, is that basically like a bunch of rich assholes in a boardroom decided what it means to be a woman. And it goes down to everything like us shaving our hair off. That was a marketing scheme that they created because only men were buying razors. So they wanted to double their profits. So they basically told women that they weren't going to be feminine if they had hair. And it was so rare for women to shave their legs that in the 1920s, there's an article about a woman who cut her leg shaving. That's how rare it was. So all of these things that we believe are femininity and womanhood, with the exception of like having children and periods and stuff, was all designed by marketing agencies, which is why we need to be also weary of the narratives that are happening right now, because they're just rewriting the fucking marketing scheme. We're the ones who need to rewrite who we are. So that's my book. It will be coming out. I don't have a date. But I've been working on that book for almost 10 years. And I've had a lot of ups and downs with that whole process, because it feels like never ending. Every time you edit it again and again and again, you keep editing it. And it gets stressful. But now I feel that everything is coming into place. But I've always felt that with that book, that basically that's part of what I'm here to do. On top of helping people remember who they are, I also want, because my own journey of being a woman in this life has been chaotic. And I will get into that. And I do talk about that very in detail in the book. And, the things I experienced in the past life are not completely far off from things I've experienced in this life. It's not like, I got off that easy, that a lot of those things didn't still happen in this life. But I have the choice now, I didn't need to marry that person. I'm not imprisoned by that person. I get to still live my whole life. And, I've had to forgive people who have done wrongs to me. And that's all stuff that I'll end up talking about as well. For now, I'll keep it on this channel about the spiritual, fun, weird, cool, and then maybe save that very personal story more for the book and everything, or maybe I'll talk about it at some point. We'll see. Sorry, I'm rambling, but that is part of what I'm here to do, and that's been part of my own journey of being a woman. So I do think that I had, or at least those are the past lives that I've remembered. Did I actually live those past lives? I don't know. I mean, that other past life where I had the son who I didn't feel anything toward, I also felt that was correlated to my ex-boyfriend, who was my boyfriend at the time. Not that I didn't feel anything towards him, but I had like this feeling like, because of other stuff that I've experienced with men, that I just couldn't fully love him. And he would be so kind to me and so sweet, which don't give him too much credit. He was a phony liar, cheater, in the end. So maybe my intuition knew deep down. I don't know. But at the place that I was at when I had that experience, and the place of my relationship that I was at during that time, I did see that correlation. And I felt like, wow, was he my son in that past life? Or are these just parallels that I'm seeing? Am I seeing these past life parallels because these things are prominent in my life right now? Same thing with the other past life that I had, where I woke up and I broke up with the guy. The guy that I broke up with when I woke up was not the guy who flickered in the thing. They're different people. So I think it is great to explore past lives. However, a lot of people have said, like, I just don't feel that, like, connected to it. And that's because a lot of people, we're moving past that. We're in a stage of our collective spiritual journey where not everybody even needs to worry about their past lives. So, like, it's not something that's crucial. If you don't feel, like, very called to it, that's okay. Because a lot of people, it doesn't matter. I've done Akashic readings for my friends, and they've asked about past lives. And one of them said, like, honestly, it's just not relevant to where she's at. She's beyond that in her spiritual journey, So, like, the past lives are really good, I believe, earlier on in your spiritual journey. But wherever resonates for you, whatever works for you. But sometimes people who've been doing the work for a long time, they might not need to focus on a past life. It might not be beneficial for them. And a lot of people, their past lives are imprints because they're not from here. They're starseeds or whatever, or volunteers. So the imprint thing comes from the Dolores Cannon books. She's the one who, like, coined the term imprint to mean that. So in the book Keepers of the Garden, Phil, and I'll be very quick, Phil, the main hypnosis subject in that book, goes through past lives and stuff in the beginning. They don't really get into the past lives. They kind of just start on the journey that is relevant to the book. And then at one point she asks, well, how many lives has he had on Earth? And they said, oh no, this is the first one. She's like, the first one? But what was all those past lives that he did in the beginning of our sessions together? And they said, oh, those were just imprints. He had to basically download those from the Akashic records so that when he came to Earth, he was not completely overwhelmed by his experience here. So initially, when I learned about imprints, when I first read that, I was like, interesting, but nah. Mine felt too real, especially the brothel life. Like, that life. See, the other ones I felt like could have possibly been imprints. The brothel life felt like painfully real, traumatically real. But now, as I move on and I healed that life, and made peace with that and forgave myself and things like that, I feel like, who knows? We'll never know. And then she asks in the book, because I'm sure that's what you're thinking, is how do you know if it's a real life or an imprint? Dolores asks the same question. How do you know if it's a real life or an imprint? And the answer was like, why do you wish to know? She's like, because my whole entire body of work, basically, I need to know. They're like, what does it matter to you? And she's like, well, because sometimes people try to discredit past lives, and, is this discrediting past lives, basically? And they said, if the person themselves cannot tell whether it's real or an imprint, then why does it matter to you? And it's the reason it's an imprint is important. So it doesn't matter if they lived the life or if someone else lived the life and they just downloaded it. It still is just as important. It still has the same effects. The same reasoning for you remembering a past life would be the same reason for you remembering an imprint. And then they say something like, like there's no like, there's nothing proprietary about past lives. Like basically like, I forget exactly what words are. They didn't say, they said something like proprietary, but like, basically is like, there's no patents on past lives, which is also why sometimes people have past lives of the same people. Like a lot of people believe that they're Marilyn Monroe in a past life. And I personally have my own feelings about that. I think that that is some type of coping mechanism. I think people who, and I'm not saying if you believe that you were a celebrity in a past life, sure. I'm not going to tell you that that's not true because I don't know you. I don't know what your experience is. However, it is my belief that most of the time, if people have a past life regression or believe that they were someone in a past life, it could possibly be a coping mechanism because they're not happy with where their life is right now. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, this isn't working out for me, but I was Marilyn Monroe in a past life. So,